All right, you have chosen to do one of the nonfiction readings for language arts. This article is Biometrics, New IDs that are uniquely you. It says, forget fingerprints. In the near future, eyebrows or heartbeats may become your new IDs. All right, so this gray box says, police and law enforcement have historically used fingerprints to identify suspects and prosecute criminals. But now, using new technology and the science of biometrics, scientists have developed a different and potentially more advanced way of identifying people. As you read, take notes on how this technology works and how it can be used beneficially. So, before I begin, I will say you do not need to take notes, but I think it would be very helpful if you followed along as I read. Paragraph 1. On April 18, 2013, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, released blurry photos of two suspects at the scene of the Boston Marathon bombing. Mario Civides and his team quickly tried to identify them. Civides works at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania as a scientist specializing in pattern recognition and signal processing. He creates special software that can identify people in digital images. As he and his fellow experts began sifting through the FBI pictures, they faced a challenge. Even the best picture of one of the suspects was extremely low resolution, Civides recalls. It was blurred, off angle, and he was wearing a hat. Still, the team worked through the night. Using their experimental face recognition software, they enhanced the photo. In the morning, they sent it off to the FBI. By that time, law enforcement already had identified the two suspects. Still, after the fact, we saw our reconstruction was pretty darn good, Civides says. Today, he is working to make the software even better. To do this, he and his team are using something called biometrics. It's a relatively new field of technology, Civides notes. The name explains it all. Bio means life, he says. Metrics is about measuring. So biometrics measures features or characteristics individually or in combination that are unique to some person. No one else will share exactly the same features. Paragraph 5. Fingerprints probably represent the best known example of a feature useful in biometrics. Others include the iris, which is the colored muscle in the eye, and the face. Biometric engineers are looking to find still more. Any feature of the body with a unique shape, size, texture, or pattern, and that can be read by biometric technologies potentially can be used to identify someone. Rapidly and accurately identifying people is useful. The police sometimes use biometric technology to ID criminals, disaster victims, and missing children. Bank tellers may use biometrics to verify the identity of anyone attempting to withdraw money from an account. Because of the usefulness of biometric technology, governments are starting to include fingerprint and other biometric data in driver's licenses, ID cards, and passports. Research on biometrics is advancing rapidly. Here, we meet researchers behind 3 teams developing new ways to ID people. Their work is leading to the creation of electronic devices and security systems that one day may recognize us almost instantly and effortlessly. Lego lessons. Civides' specialty is facial biometrics. He creates step-by-step instructions called algorithms for a computer program to follow. The instructions tell the computer how to fill in the parts of the face that either don't show up in a photo or are too low quality and blurry to recognize. Let's say the face is made up of Lego blocks, says Civides. You can create an algorithm that knows which Lego blocks to use at what location. For instance, the first line in a set of mathematical instructions written by Civides might tell the program to make 2 small dark green blocks in the center. They would represent the eyes. The second line might tell the computer to add 103 large light beige blocks in an oval pattern around the edge. These blocks would represent the outline of the head. The result will be the building plan for a simple biometric signature of the face. Paragraph 10. Using a powerful computer, Civides designed one algorithm that can enhance a small and blurry face. It automatically generates a larger and more detailed image. He taught the computer program to do this by having it compare thousands of matched pairs of faces. Each pair included one blurry image and one sharp image of the same face. Now, when Civides scans a new blurry face into his computer, his algorithm applies the lessons it had learned earlier from analyzing those thousands of matched pairs of photos. In short order, the program pops out a sharpened version of the once blurry face. The enhanced version may not be an exact likeness of the person in the photo. Still, it's usually close. Certainly, it can be close enough for police to use in comparing against clearer photos of possible suspects. We have a long way to go before we start trusting computers 100%, says Savides. We still want humans involved in making the final identification. He has used the same compare and match technique to teach a computer to turn a two-dimensional photo of a face into a three-dimensional one. That means instead of seeing a face from a single angle, law enforcement officials now can rotate and turn that head on a computer screen. This allows them to view the face from any angle, including the same angle as the face in some photo. Now the police can make a 2D view of this rotated face and see if it matches the person in the original photo. Paragraph 15. Savides even has a strategy for taking into account how faces change as people age. Imagine the police are looking for a young man missing since childhood. The only photograph they have was taken when a boy was just 12. Now he is 25, and the police think they have spotted him in a recent photo. Savides' research shows that eyes and eyebrows stay the same over time, so he asked the computer to match just those features in the two pictures. Since the computer is not looking at the entire face, any match may not be foolproof, but it could narrow down the number of candidates. And if the photo reveals a clear image of the iris, a computer will have even better luck in matching the man to his 12-year-old self. The colored muscle around the pupil of the eye is much more detailed. It is also unique and won't have changed as the boy grew into a man. In fact, the pattern of light reflected by the iris never changes. That is why its pattern forms the basis of some security locks. The technology often shows up in movies and television programs. Putting your heart into it. Biometric programs that rely on facial features are among the most common ways to identify people. But Fotini, Agrafiotti, and Carl Martin are developing a system that would work even if no parts of the body were visible. You might say they are taking biometrics to heart. Their technology works by measuring a heart's electrical patterns. Paragraph 20. In 2011, the two engineers created a wristband called NEMI that measures the electrical signals created by its wearer's heart. The signals match the rhythm of the heartbeat, and these are unique to each of us. That makes them useful as a sort of biometric password, the type that can allow someone to log into a computer. No need to remember a complicated password that contains a string of letters, numbers, and other symbols. The engineers came up with the idea when they were getting their PhDs. Agrafiotti in electrical and computer engineering, and Martin in engineering science at the University of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. Their wristband includes sensors that read the electrical signal a heart gives off each time it beats. That reading is called an electrocardiogram, or ECG. It's the same test that hospitals use to monitor a patient's heart. The ECG measures the shape of a heart's electrical signal. When your heart beats fast, such as after a run, the signal will constrict and repeat faster, but its shape stays the same. When you sit down to work, the wristband can wirelessly transmit that shape to your computer. There, a computer program can compare the pattern to one previously stored on its hard drive. Only if the two match will the computer log you on, and you stay logged on until you take off the wristband or walk away. Paragraph 25. In 2011, Agrafiotti and Martin founded a company in Toronto called Bionim to sell the wristbands. Sales should start in late 2014. The $79 wristbands are being designed for use with tablets, cell phones, and computers. In the future, the engineers hope their wristbands will open all sorts of doors, literally, for wearers. One day it might allow homeowners to unlock the door to their house or their car. It even could be used to withdraw cash from an ATM. Martin says the goal is to create a single wearable item to replace all of the smart cards, keys, and passwords people now use. All of these tools allow us to let technology know who we are, Martin says. It's not only easier, but also more interesting to create a single technology that a person can wear on their body to replace all of those separate objects. And finally, stealing the wristband would do a thief no good. That's because it is someone's heartbeat, not the wristband, that would actually unlock something. Fingerprints from blood vessels. By using a heartbeat to identify someone is a relatively new form of biometrics. Fingerprints have a much longer history. Police have relied on them to help catch criminals for at least a century. Paragraph 30. The ridges on our fingerprints create unique patterns that don't change even as we age. These ridges contain tiny pores through which we sweat. That means each time we touch something, we leave behind a little sweat in the pattern of that print. When investigating a crime, police often look for fingerprints. Investigators can capture an image of a print by taking a picture of it, or they can transfer a print to a piece of sticky tape. Later, if a fingerprint lifted from the scene of a crime matches one on file, police know that person was at the scene. Then they can start investigating whether the person might be the criminal. Using fingerprints to identify someone has its limits. It can be hard to get a good print from someone who have worn down the skin on their fingers after years of working with rough materials such as brick or stone. It can also be hard to get good fingerprints from young children. Their ridges are just too tiny and narrow. Rob Rowe has designed a handheld fingerprint scanner that solves these problems. An optical physicist, Rowe studies light and how it interacts with things. The scanner looks like a tall computer mouse with a finger-shaped pad on top. When someone places a finger on the pad, different colors of light illuminate it from below. Paragraph 35. Each color or wavelength of light travels harmlessly through the skin into the finger. The light travels all the way to the blood vessels. Those vessels scatter and absorb the light in different ways, depending on the wavelength of light that had been used. As each wavelength of light bounces back to the scanner, it creates a pattern tracing out the blood vessels within the finger. The scanner then puts together all those separate images to produce a single master pattern. It turns out blood vessels and other structures below the skin have the same shape as the fingerprint on the surface of the finger, says Rowe, who helped found a company to sell the scanners. So an image of those vessels is just as good as a fingerprint, if not better. Beyond law enforcement. VaxTrax is an organization based in Washington, D.C. It works around the world to help poor and developing countries do a better job of vaccinating children. In 2013, it started using Rowe's fingerprint scanner in the West African country of Benin. Health workers there have so far scanned the fingers of more than 20,000 children. The kids are not suspected of crimes. Instead, their prints reveal whether they already have received vaccines against life-threatening diseases. The fingerprint scanner sends a message to a central computer. Inside the computer, a database contains information about what vaccines a child has received and when. The username for each medical file is the child's fingerprint. Health officials tap into this file using the fingerprint scanner to accurately identify which children still need vaccinating and which don't. Without a record of a child's vaccination, we usually revaccinate them, says VaxTrax project manager Meredith Baker. Using the scanner, we don't waste vaccine. Using biometrics to keep kids healthy, log onto electronic devices, and catch criminals are important applications. But all three teams already are looking to other uses. They want to refine their research for use in exciting new applications. Savid's, for example, dreams of smart robots that do our bidding before we even ask. We eventually want to use facial recognition in robots that can identify who you are. How would it be to have a robot that could say, "Hi Marios, how are you doing today?" It also would know your every preference. After recognizing you, a robot butler could let you into your house, adjust the air temperature, and put on your favorite music. Paragraph 45. That's how I see biometrics being used in the future, he says. It may seem far away, but someday it will happen.